But before we get into some of the trivia, I think that maybe we should talk about some of the stuff that you were working on.
Well, what I was looking through was regarding quotes from the movie.
Quotes, okay.
Some of my favorite quotes and stuff, too.
Yeah,
I also asked Calvin and stuff about a few things, too, because he was walking by. I'm like, Calvin, when you think of Return of the Jedi, what's your quote did you come to?
Hey, what flows to the surface?
What's the first thing, you know? So I was going through a few of those. My first one with that was, I don't know why. It's not anything necessarily pertaining to the story. It's De Wanawanga.
De Wanawanga.
It was like the first thing that came to mind. I was like, it's such a fun quote. And I'm like,
it is
what's
such
it mean?
a fun quote.
I forget, but I love saying it.
Yeah.
Like the Huttese in this movie is just, it's fun and it's different. And it's fun to pretend to be Jabba, you know, De Wanawanga, you know, and they did the Family Guy thing when they're like, Wookie nipple pinchy, you know, and they do those kind of things, but they say it in that weird Huttese sound, and it's just fun. And I always remembering like Bib Fortuna. And stuff, being like, come on, like, give me the information.
It's why I have a small disconnect when I see Bib Fortuna as portrayed by Matthew Wood in like Book of Boba Fett, or I should say at the end of Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, you're Boba, I'm a clunky, you know? And I'm like, hey, man, you got to say De Wanawanga and then do those
and then
lines.
Go from there, right?
De Wanawanga, or the Monklunky. Yeah, I think I agree with you. If I'm going to rate that like 1 to 5 on like, what do I think of first? De Wanawanga is a pretty good one. I'm going to give that a 4.
I had a few of these here where it's like these are ones that I just think of that I like, and there's other ones that I feel like these are just important quotes that just work well with like either the story or the characters.
Yeah.
One is I mean, just look.
I also think of Lucha.
I guess.
No Jabba, no bother.
Yeah, I suppose so.
He's so iconic.
It's just the Huttese sounds, the language.
And I've always loved the choice of like the Twi'leks. When you see the Twi'lek women, you're always like, hey, good looking girl. You see the Twi'lek guy, you're like, oh goodness, he's rough.
Yeah. So, but as far as like ones that are like very important character wise and stuff too, I think is the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am.
The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am. Yeah, that just sets the stage.
Yeah, right. It's like, well, here's Vader. Wait, when has he been forgiving?
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like, he's forgiving? What's the Emperor going to be like?
I know.
And it just sets a higher bar, I think, of what to expect from the Emperor and how, like, ruthless he could be.
Yeah, it's the classic power scaling thing. You spend so much time putting Darth Vader up here that when kids walk into that theater and are like, well, the Emperor, who's the Emperor? I like Darth Vader. Darth Vader's like, he's scary to me.
Yeah,
and
right.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
Who boogie's the boogeyman? Okay.
This guy.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I like that one, too.
For another one of the fun ones, I had a tie between It's a Trap.
It's a Trap.
Which is one that everyone always thinks of, right?
It is. And it's
parodied so much.
It's parodied. One, it's said by Leia in Empire Strikes Back, it's a trap, you know? So everybody always says it's a trap. They think of Akbar, but they don't think of Leia. But two, that was not the original line. And audiences that screened the movie laughed at the original line. They said, that's ridiculous. When he goes, it's a trick!
They laughed at it?
They laughed at it. And George was like, why are they laughing? I don't know. I guess for some reason it doesn't work. And he's sitting there like, it's a trap. Say it. It's a trap! Perfect!
Great. Well, there you go. Now we're mixing trivia in, too.
A little bit,
so that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, I never heard the It's a Trick version.
Yeah,
but, I mean, how many versions of the original trilogy are there now?
I mean, there are so many more that we'll never see.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, in fact, there was an entire cut done by a completely different editor that Lucas is like, this doesn't feel like Star Wars, and they had someone else do.
For which movie? Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi, yeah. Or Revenge of the Jedi, if you want to go that way.
Back in the original name, yeah.
Did you know that with Revenge of the Jedi, around that time, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan was coming out, and it was originally called Revenge of Khan, but they were like, we can't have it be the same name.
Can't name it Revenge.
So they changed it. And like, all right, we'll change it to this worse title. And then Lucas changed it.
He's like, you know what? Revenge isn't the Jedi way. We need Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. I love that Star Trek. I was like, dang it, we can't do that. And then like, well, we could have.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's a good one, too. I like that.
Star Trek.
Right.
The other one I had it tied with is one that, I don't know if you hear it as much anymore, but Yub Nub.
Yub Nub.
Because I know the song was taken out, right?
Yeah. I have fond feelings for Yub Nub. I prefer the special edition ending myself and the new song that John Williams had put in, but Yub Nub is special. And for people that, like I said, I think it's important to try to mainly look at these movies by what they can do for kids. Like, kids that saw that is theirs, and they're going to deny anything that's different, right? Kind of like what our generation does for the new stuff.
Sure.
So it rhymes. We have that generational look at something like you would a kid, look at something like you would an adult, and sometimes you want to try to err more towards the childlike nature
side
of
it. Yeah.
But yeah,
even though they're eating stormtroopers, but
well, I mean, they're Nazis. It's okay.
I suppose.
I think that's okay. I think
they
put that in the Geneva Convention.
Okay. If you look at it that way, I guess it's okay.
Yep. Yep.
Back to another one that's just a good quote from the movie.
Okay.
Was "I'm a Jedi like my father before me."
Yeah.
Like
I am a Jedi like my father before me, and that's after he just was like, sister, and he's like, what? And he's like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
Yeah.
No. And he has to hold himself off, and that, like I think a lot of people when they look at that and they look at Luke as an ideal, they think of like, I'm a Jedi, I will not fight.
Yeah.
But he had to get there.
Sure, yeah. Right?
You know?
He was choking some Gamorreans before that.
Yeah, he's 22.
Yeah.
Like how wise are you at 22?
Sure.
But he had to find that. So I agree. That's a good one.
People talk about Cal Kestis and all these stormtroopers and stuff he's killed and everything too, but I mean, like, Luke Skywalker has killed his, handful of, there's a lot more than a handful.
I would say Death Star full.
Yeah, he has a lot of people he's killed. But even, like, closer, like Jabba's sail barge, like all those people he's just cutting down, throwing into Sarlacc pits and stuff, like, they're not living.
No, he's not.
know?
Yeah.
So,
no, and the idea of, like, the Force and Jedi are never meant to attack. They're never meant to go that far. But I remember in the old novelization, that scene was slightly amended, where it was like, unless you're outnumbered. If you're outnumbered, yeah, do some attacking,
Sure, yeah.
And I would say Luke was outnumbered.
When you have to defend yourself and that kind of stuff, too, when
Yeah.
Death Star's going to destroy a bunch of planets and stuff, that's
because
good.
it's so interesting in that movie. Luke is, like, I always try to place myself, like, what it would have been like to be in the theater, knowing nothing. Luke walks in all black, choking pigs, and I'm like, oh, my God, what's wrong?
Yeah.
I wish I kind of had that
mechanical
feeling.
hand,
Yeah. I can never remember
the first
time watching, so I always knew it's like, well, yeah, I mean, Luke, it's a little darker path, but he'll find the light, and then he can reveal that light side out of his outfit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of that flap comes down, and actually inside he is a Jedi, he is on the light, but yeah, I think about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really good, and I think there's a lot of Jedi too that, I think their Jedi-isms get better when they've had a closer spillover to the dark side, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of have that with...
You can't appreciate the light without the dark.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Seer went through that we had, right? Where we talked about that last time, right? Where she had touched the dark side and, like, she cut herself off from it because she was so scared. But then, in Battlescar, she's kind of, like, reconnecting herself to it and wanting to go even harder into the Jedi way with it, too.
Sure.
And I think there's other examples, too, of Jedi that have done that kind of stuff. Luke Skywalker maybe could be one of those.
Oh, absolutely. The dark side doesn't manifest just in obvious evil. I think that the trickiest part about it is that you could think that you're doing absolute good, or that you're really trying to help people, and you can still hit it. Right?
Sure.
Like, Anakin doesn't want to be evil. He's still the 9-year-old slave boy that wants to help each other. There's the only thing wrong with this galaxy, no one helped each other. But whenever he found that he wanted to help others, or at least the ones that he really cared for, he was told, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't care about people in that way." And Luke touches the dark side because, I mean, at least that's the kind of way I think about it in the sequel trilogy, when given the vision that this kid, his nephew, is going to do terrible things, just like his dad did. And I think a lot of people are like, hey, my Luke Skywalker would never hesitate to not think about what I could do about it. But in my opinion, my Luke Skywalker did, when faced with the danger posed to Leia that she could be corrupted by Vader, he was going to kill him. Like, all of those blows aren't just like, I'm going to get you over here so I can chop your hand off. All of those blows are, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And
there's definitely an anger and a dark side within him there that has been unleashed a time or two, right? So,
and if you want to talk about growth, I mean, Luke feels that feeling, but he doesn't do it. But the dark side is such that once you start down its path, forever it dominates your destiny. He hesitates one moment by thinking like, yeah, okay, I could redeem Darth Vader after all the terrible things that he did, but what if I could put a stop to all the terrible things that he did? And that's what he's faced with.
What if I could prevent it from happening?
That's what he's faced with what happens to Kylo Ren. It's a very, very, very different decision, but it kind of rhymes in a way.
Yeah. It's like, what if Darth Maul would have ran him over in the desert?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
What kind of world would we be in separate?
Isn't that crazy? Maul had no idea who that kid was.
No, he would just charge at him. He's like, there's a kid, you know?
He's that Jedi. Oh, kid! You know?
Like he was going to run that random kid over. He didn't know who he was. He was looking for Padme and Jedi.
Yeah, he was.
He's like, why are you running this kid over? I don't know.
Oh, man.
He is. All right. Well, to pair with that, too, I also had on here, tell your sister you were right.
Yeah.
Which I think pairs well with the idea of, like, I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. Like, he was like, there's still good in him, right? Like, that was the big thing of why he wanted it.
And he wants his daughter to know. Mm-hmm. Like, he wants Luke to know. Mm-hmm. Like, tell your sister you're right, but you were right is also directed at Luke.
Yeah.
You were right.
You were right.
I just told you were wrong. There's no hope for me, son.
Mm-hmm.
Almost implying, like, there might still be some for you. You know, I always see that scene at the walkway, like Vader kind of being like, could I? No. Because no one cares about me. You know, Palpatine uses me.
Yeah.
But no one really cares about me. I mean, Luke's saying he is, but he doesn't know me. I know me.
Yeah.
But even in the moment of, like, certain death, Luke's like, no, I do care. And I think that's what puts Vader over the edge, being like, there actually is something I can do. I'm going to throw this dude down a hole.
No.
Yeah. You know, we never really get that payoff either. Like, tell your sister you were right, but we don't see that. And I know the Legends continuity. I'm not really sure about canon now, but Legends continuity, Leia really struggled with that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
With the idea that he was still good inside?
Yeah. Like, there was even older stories about, like, it could be implied that Anakin Skywalker's trying to reach out to her, but she doesn't want to. So, but again, old Legends continuities.
In theory, he would be able to as a Force Ghost if he was able to reach that point, which it shows him there in Return of the Jedi.
It does.
It's just interesting because he's one who didn't have a connection as much to Qui-Gon, which is kind of the connection that allowed everyone else to be Force Ghosts. So it could just be how strong he is with the Force as a whole.
There's been a couple different answers for that, you know, which is one of the things that when people like get really stringent about like canon and this is the way it is, I don't care about, you know, what other people think, but I mean, the explanation of why Anakin can do that has changed a little bit throughout the years. At first, I think Lucas said that Obi-Wan and Yoda, like, guided and taught him in the moment of his death to be able to do it. And I think there might still be some truth to that.
Sure. They're standing there with him.
But there's also the idea that, you know, because Anakin is the chosen one, it's something, it's an advantage that he has over others when it comes to his connections with the Force. And there's no right answer.
No, there's not. But, like,
there shouldn't be.
In his, like, Jesus birth type of thing, right? Where it's like there was no father, you know, like well, what made him? It's like the Force made him. So like he just has a stronger connection to it maybe than some others do. So he kind of naturally falls into that in some way. Yeah. Especially since by the time he dies, it's more on the light side than on the dark side.
Yeah,
you know.
No, there was you know some of the alternate stuff that Lucas came up with for Return of the Jedi. The way that it ended up is very different. Like Obi-Wan was going to come back to life. Yoda was going to come back to life at the end of that movie. And I think it was even implied that Anakin might have come back to life in those scenes too. I don't know exactly where that information is sourced. You know, there's always, this is why I love George Lucas. Sometimes you can try to go find an answer that he's given throughout the years, and then you can find a complete different answer to the same question throughout the years as well. And there's a little part of me that kind of respects that, even he recognizes that this thing is a living mythology and stuff can change, and ultimately it's not about what it is, it's about how did you experience it, what did it make you feel.
I mean, in the original time, like, we get original trilogy, we have Return of the Jedi. At the end of that, you see 3 Jedi who are Force Ghosts. Yeah. Like, as far as what we know, implication of that could just be Jedi turn into Force Ghosts. That's just what they do, you know? It's not until we get into the prequels and stuff that we start seeing less Force Ghosts. And then in the Clone Wars, where we start seeing, like, oh, Qui-Gon had a bigger connection to the living Force, and then he taught Yoda how to do this kind of thing. And
that's why I'm not very sanctimonious when it comes to the canon. Like, I'm open to things changing or you know,
being reinformed,
things being reinterpreted, or even just like reflected in a new artist coming in and putting their stamp or their thoughts into stuff. I've become extremely more open to that the older I get.
Yeah.
Before I was not.
Yeah.
I was.
No, this is the canon.
It was the canon. Yeah. Exactly.
I noticed like the next few I have are actually a little bit more sillier in a way. I
like silly.
I like Fly Casual.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
I don't know. It's just one that stands out, and I didn't think about it real easily. But I like that one a lot.
Isn't it crazy to think that you never see Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon cockpit in that movie?
Yeah, not in that one.
I always like those little details where it's like, yeah, he never shows up in that one.
Nope. Speaking of the guy who flies it, another one I had was a little higher. Just a little higher.
Yeah, that's certainly one that rises to the top for me. Return of the Jedi.
I just love the moment too where he's like, "Wait, I thought you were blind. I can see a lot better.
I was getting a lot better."
Poor
Lando.
Yeah,
the last time he saw this guy, that's the guy that betrayed me, and he's pointing a gun at you. Oh no, I'm here to help.
Yeah, right. So it's definitely like you go from that to that, and it's like, please don't shoot me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then last one I really have. I have an honorable mention one. It's not really a serious one. I just thought of it mainly because Rick was around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was against my It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a fun moment in Return of the Jedi.
It's protocol.
Yeah, where they get caught in a net because Chewie's thinking with his stomach, right? And all these little Ewoks just show up, and then they look at this golden person as a god. And I don't know. It's just a funny moment to here's this tribal group.
It's interesting to think of the story implications of what that line gives too, because especially an uncontacted tribe like the Ewoks. I mean, I don't know how much contact they've had with the greater galaxy, but if you were to interact with someone that has almost infinite knowledge, like 3PO has so much knowledge, he doesn't necessarily have much wisdom, but in terms of facts, being able to speak 6 million forms of communication is godlike. I mean, to speak in tongues is to be able to speak where everyone can understand you. That's a miracle. So, yeah, I imagine the people that put the protocols in place would be also, if we were to just lose one of these guys on an untacted world, we don't want them to become gods.
What other reason is there for that? Because it's a weird thing to be let's make sure there's what happened, right? You always see floating flotation devices where it's not meant to be a saving device or whatever, right?
Yes. Do not put in mouth.
Who did this that they had to put this warning on? So what occurred where they were you know what? Let's make sure there's a protocol where robots or droids can't be deities.
Yeah. That would be a fun side story to have a story of a droid that was marooned on a planet, and because it's a droid, it can theoretically live for a very, very long time.
Sure, yeah.
And it's literally seen as a god, but it keeps trying to say, I'm not. It's our god is so humble.
Yeah, right. Praise the God.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then the last one I had, like I said, was more of an honorable mention, but it was "We So Free."
Yeah, that's a good one.
I just thought of it, like I said, mainly because Rick was here at the time, but I was like, you know what? That also kind of symbolizes, it's the ending of everything with Return of the Jedi. They destroyed the Empire.
Yeah.
It's what does this movie represent? It represents the rebellion finally winning and beating the Empire and stuff.
It does.
It all culminates with a Gungan We So Free.
I think it's important to show it be a Gungan, too, because Gungans... I always liked this tone poem commercial that came out around Episode 1. It was Peter Serafinowicz doing way more lines than he ever did in the movie, but he has this fear attracts the fearful, and it's the powerful, the corrupt, the innocent. And when he says innocent, it shows Jar Jar. Jar Jar and the Gungans, they really are the innocent. I mean, yeah, they're warriors and they'll do what they can to defend themselves, but they have no ambition other than just let us live in our lake.
Yeah, we just want to live in this water.
Just let us live here.
We're not trying to take over the galaxy. Yeah. We're not trying to take over Theed. We don't even care about that.
Yeah, so freedom for the Gungans is freedom for all, and I'm glad that they get voiced.
Yeah. There. Well, how bad was their life on Naboo in that water?
Yeah.
That they were we are free and they're partying,
Yeah, exactly, right.
What did the Empire do to them?
Yeah.
I know at one point in the actually I guess this would have been after this point, right? Where there was Operation Cinder. That would have been after this. Could you imagine me we are free, and all of a sudden oh, lightning coming from the sky. So. But that's all of the general quotes that I had.
Okay, cool.
From
some good
Return
quotes.
of the Jedi, just to kind of look back and think about some moments and stuff. Like I said, some of them are a little bit more story heavy. Some of them are just ones where I'm I just love this moment, or I just think about this moment, or it was a funny moment that stood out to me.
I mean, the one you have, I am a Jedi like my father before me, that's such a powerful one to think about that it's something that pops up more, right?
Sure.
I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy, my father before me, You keep that going because the idea of legacy and father to son or, parent to child, what you pass on next. And it's strange that Luke, who should, for all intents and purposes, see his father as a force of evil and a force of negative and someone that will fight and destroy. And he's even almost saying it to Vader, like my father before me, I will not fight. I will throw away my weapon. That's what I see when I think of you, and that's what you can be. It's a very powerful moment. So that's probably my favorite of the ones that you got.
I didn't even have anything with the Emperor. There's so many good ones with him, I feel like, too. Mm-hmm. I just like when he's talking about, like, you want this, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. There's some good stuff with him, too.
Yeah. Now, I like all those scenes that are added to Return of the Jedi in a special edition, but yeah, that Gungan's like on top of like a building. We so free. Yeah, it's great.
They're knocking over the statue there on Coruscant or whatever it was. Yeah. And no, I like that little segment. I love that segment. I really like the Yub Nub. But I don't know, the music's still like do do do.
I have room for both in my heart.
I know. I just can't find Yub Nub hardly anywhere. I want them to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Do a Visions and have it be a Yub Nub video or something, you know? Yub Nub. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.